Hi, I'm Nick, the founder of Lift Cacao, and I'm here talking with India, the main representative of Betena Cacao. So, India, could you introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Hola, Nick. Good to see you. Yeah, everyone. Nice to see you through these ways. I'm here in Costa Rica. I I've been involved with cacao since the beginning of my upbringing. It's something that has been in our tribe of the Cabecar and BriBri people of Costa Rica. So cacao has always been in the kitchen, in our grandmother's kitchen, and yeah, something that I would love to share more about and the cacao that we're sharing with Soul Lift. So yeah, an honor to be here.
Beautiful. And I think we've been working together for a couple of years now. The BriBri, uh, culture is much less known than a lot of indigenous cultures that do have that ancient connection with cacao. But how long have you even been sharing? How long has the community been sharing their cacao,
Yeah,
outside like this?
yeah, it's fairly new. I would say that it's definitely when the first sort of settlers of the European nations came to this area of the Caribbean side in Puerto Viejo. That's when they started like learning more about, oh, there's cacao production here and there's chocolatiers and they actually make this. So I think that around the 70s, 80s, that's when it's really started sort of like expanding the knowledge of Europeans coming here and taking notice that we were growing cacao, and then there was like this whole culture around it, and then more anthropologists and more people would come and start having conversations with the elders and get to know us a little bit better, because like you said, not a lot of people know of us. We are the largest tribe of Costa Rica. The BriBri and the Cabecar people were cousins to each other. We've had almost a very similar dialect. We came from the same place, according to our cosmology, the same mountain point, and so we've been guarding the cosmology since the beginning of times through oral tradition. And what I was sharing earlier with you is that because of the way geographically how we're located in Costa Rica, it was harder for the colonizers to come and indoctrinate us the way that they've done with North America, Turtle Island, Guatemala, Mexico. It was harder for them. So I think that was just like the way that we were able to keep our tradition, our oral traditions. It was through going through the mountain, just pretty much like burning everything, escaping, and just ensuring that we're passing on the knowledge. And that has kept going since today until today. Yeah.
Amazing. And in a nutshell, how would you describe your culture's connection with cacao, or how do they consider it?
Yeah, for us, it's a very deep relationship, because according to our story and according to our creation story, Sibu, which is creator, which is this archetype of the creative force, the creative energy, he comes into this plane. There's different planes that we live in. It's sort of like this spiral. Instead of being a globe, it's like a spiral, and there's like a center plane, and then he comes from 4 dimensions up. And so it says that in the story, we come from the lower dimension, which is called Suracasca. And in there, in order for him to create us as people, as indigenous people, specifically our creation story says that he had to go to Suracasca, work with Sura, which is this other entity, and then mold us from clay. But it wasn't until speaking with the spirit of cacao, which we know is to be Sru, he was able to sort of agree that that will become our blood. And so there was a whole ritual that came to be in that first ceremony of creation with Cibola and all the spirits and all the entities and the woman of cacao and everything, to be able to form this dance of creation, this spiral dance of creation, this plane, to bring us, the original people, BriBri and Cabecar people, to this plane through clay, through dirt, and also through the blood of cacao. She runs through our veins. Without her, we wouldn't be here. That's why there's so many rituals, and there's a lot of um rules that we have to follow inside the tribe, and in order to make sure that we're respecting the spirit and respecting the relationship that we have, because she is in our blood, she runs through us.
Hmm.
And so yeah, there's that connection that without her we wouldn't be here.
Wow. And I want to ask about the idea of a cacao ceremony because it's so controversial in the US, where I grew up. I've begun to discourage people from using that term because it most of the time I see it used, it's just not with enough acknowledgement that what might be done in a modern way is different from traditional practices. But could you just talk a bit about does your culture use that term, or I think you've described kind of a council of elders sitting together drinking cacao, but
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. This is something that we haven't lost. Is these practices, these rituals, these ceremonies? They still exist within our tribe, and for our tribe members, for the people that are part of the Tsowo, what we call the seeds. So you have to have a clan. You have to be a member of our matrilineal society, if you may, which comes from the mother. And so, with that, there are different ceremonies that take place in one's life, and they're carried by different sort of protagonists of the ritual of the ceremony itself. And so, the Srudmi, which is the cacao woman, she's the one in charge of taking care of cacao and ensuring all the protocols for the cacao are going to be ready for whenever we're going to start that ritual, whether it's birth. So when a child comes in, there's a ritual that is the tsowo, our seeds, our clan members. And so the Tsurutmi has to be there, and Awa has to be there, which is the medicine man, the Bakakra, which is the ritualistic ceremonialist. So there's different characters in that ceremony. It's not just like one person, like the cacao woman heading the whole thing. No, it's like different individuals with different aspects within the ceremony and different responsibilities that they have. And so the cacao lady knows when to come in, when to get out, how to prepare the cacao, when to do it, how to sing to it, what songs to sing to it, for what occasion. Then we've lost the first menstrual cycle. That used to be also a ceremony of a rite of passage for the women. We've lost that because of colonization, education, society, and the new ways of being. Nonetheless, we still have it also for the death ceremonies as well. So there isn't a concept of saying, oh, yeah, we're going to do a cacao ceremony. It's more of like, oh, we're entering into the ceremony of life and death, and also the ceremony of communication. So to be able to resolve anything through dialogue, either cacao or chicha, which is the fermented corn, are going to be there as participants for this conflict resolution that needs to happen on the ward. So that ceremony or that ritual takes place, but more into like more into like a conversation rather than like a ritual, like the death and the birth process, like I mentioned. So in that context, inside of our tribe, we wouldn't say we're going to go into a cacao ceremony. We would say we're doing the celebration for life, and we know then therefore that the cacao is going to be there, and then the Srudmi, the cacao woman, that has trained since early age for different cycles of these type of rituals, songs, and things. Then she comes in and she prepares the cacao, and she's the only one that has to touch the cacao. The cacao, because the spirit, the essence, is with her. She knows what to do with that. So in that sense, we do have that. We do still have that, and cacao is the central part of the ritual for that. And then there's different components. So I tried as much as I can that whenever I'm bridging with the outside world and knowing that cacao is traveling so much and so many people are now embracing this beautiful medicine of the heart, of like expansion, of like feeling, like really feeling, because we forgot to feel like as human beings. So I feel like it's a blessing. And also we just have to also note that these ceremonies and rituals were done because of a specific culture, belief system, and cosmology. Yeah, that's why we have those ceremonies. So if you're coming from the outside, from the Western, you wouldn't apply the same things. And you can also see the why behind it, and perhaps bridge that as a part of a circle, as a part of a container to work with the cacao as a mediator and bring your own authentic way. But I wouldn't call it a ceremony, because a ceremony is something that you've adopted because there's a ritual, there's a process, or there are protocols, and there's a reason for it, and that has been passed down. It was just not created just because we want to have cacao. It's just it's part of the transition. It's part of guarding the spirit from one part of the cosmos to the next one. So yeah, I'm not sure if there's any questions around that or what you think or feel about that,
Yeah, I
Chin.
was going to ask about what what's your opinion in general about the various ways that cacao is spreading right now, and how do we handle a situation if someone is sharing cacao or leading an event that they're not being careful or respectful in one way or another? Just any thoughts about that?
Yeah, at the beginning, I was a very sort of protective guardian. It's part of my clan. I'm part of the Numuriwa clan, which is the center post, the jaguar that takes care of that center post of the Usuri of the cosmic house. So I sort of have that of like I want to guard and make sure that everything's protected and have sort of like this yeah, not yeah, just protective energy, like mama energy towards it. So at the beginning, I think I was a little bit more upset about how things were growing, how things were being used. And then I realized that as human beings, we're just like little children. Sometimes we just don't even know what words use or why are we using the words. We're not paying attention. We've been very disconnected to the history of our peoples and what we've done throughout the ages of colonization, of looted. Of this new era of capitalism. And so I feel like we have to be a little bit more discerning and really tap into the feminine energy of like slowing down, honoring, connecting to the ways of things, and then honoring the indigenous people or the original people that you're grabbing this sort of technology from, and honor the land, and give thanks to where the cacao comes from, and give thanks of where you learned the ways. And it's interesting. Somebody was sharing to me. I just had a cacao circle like 2 days ago in a retreat for just full of women, and one of them were like, I can't believe that this is the first time that I've experienced this. And I'm like, I've never experienced anything else. I'm like, I'm not sure what
Mm.
everybody else is doing. And then she was telling me a little bit about what the Western sort of cacao ceremonies are. And what I said to her is like, as long as the person leading knows where the cacao comes from, as long as the person knows and builds relationship with the people and start
Mm.
telling and bring that as part of the circle. This is where it comes from. This is the energy. These are the people. This is the story of cacao. This is what they believe with cacao. I feel like that brings it a little bit more into the reciprocity, into the reparations, into
Mm.
the bridging that we're doing with, sort of like clearing that injury of us coming into um, sort of using something that has been a way of life for indigenous people, and instead of appropriating, just honoring it with respect. And so I feel like there's like an education curve that needs to happen and an embodiment that needs to happen of cultivating that relationship with the people, the lands where the cacao comes from. So I feel like as if you're doing that, if you're building that bridge in a good way, and if you're connecting to those principles, I feel like it's good that the cacao is spreading and that you're honoring that. I feel like we should be careful about the word ceremony from a Western
Mm.
perspective, or somebody that doesn't have sort of that lineage when it comes to the cultivation of cacao and ceremonial ritual, because like I said, there's a lot of history as human people. And so I think that we just have to just be mindful of what that can bring. Because when I speak to elders in my tribe and tell them, oh, yeah, they're calling it cacao ceremony, they're like, why? They don't even know it. Why they like, what is the relationship that they have with cacao? And I'm like, well, it's a way of like sitting together, coming together. And like, they're like, yeah, but I wouldn't call it that. So I think that there's an importance that comes with the vibration and the words that we use. And as long as we start sort of slowing down and, utilizing your platform or other
Mm.
platforms to really bring that educational component, I feel like we're all learning how to do this in a good way. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people do it with good intentions. And like I said, good intentions not always bring good results. So I think that we just have to be
Right.
mindful about that.
Yeah, I want to unfold a couple of these topics a little bit more because also the term ceremonial cacao is, in at least the English term, is pretty recent, but it resonates for so many people, and the idea continues to spread. So, education is very important to me, but sometimes I just see pretty strong opinions on the internet. People sometimes say, "Oh, these cultures that do have the traditional connection are selling out, almost like selling out their culture," or what's your opinion about, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I feel like it's very hard to speak in the perspective of a community of people that you've never had, you've never grown up with those inside perspectives. So I feel like we should reserve those commentaries if we're not from the tribe or from those people's lineages, and just be an observant and just
Mm,
be in sort of like a reverence of like, oh, I'm just here to witness. I'm here to see. I feel like those conversations need to happen mostly between like our peoples, and maybe, if you're somebody that's bridging the cacao, then you can start bridging those conversations with the people inside the tribe or the connections that you have. um I feel that as far as the word ceremony and how it's used, and what people think inside the tribe, these are very nuances. This is very new. I started to bring it up about 3 years ago into my elders and the people that fruit means, that the women and the different characters that I work with inside the territory. And time after time, what I receive is like, as long as they're knowing that it's not a ceremony of our people, they can't call it a BriBri Cacao ceremony or a Cabecar, because I wouldn't even be able to call it that. And I'm from the tribe. I'm
mm,
not a Srutmi. And so like, so imagine that if I have to go through the gnosis of like, oh, this word has a lot of weight in my tribe, so I'm just going to make sure that I honor that, and I use cacao circle or cacao container or cacao, because cacao is going to be part of the medicine that I share with the group of people. I feel like we just have to look for other words, because truly there is an existence of a cacao ceremony inside our culture. And so instead of using that, because you're using our cacao, the BriBri cacao, or it could get, it could get messy. People could get confused. It's like the marketing sort of like uh things that you do to just get more attractiveness into your things that you're doing. So I feel like it's just, yeah, it's just that process of reparations, of
mm,
listening to what the elders are saying. It's like, don't call it that, slow it down, use
mm.
it with your tools, the things that you use. So I had a beautiful brother that works with it, and he's really good on breath work. He has like a breath work practice, so he called it breath work with cacao. Perfect.
Mm,
That's your
mm.
jam, that's what you do, this is your gifts, and you're using cacao as a mediator, and you're at the same time you're honoring the people, because you're not extracting from that word itself.
Yeah, and obviously Betena Cacao that you share through Soul Lift is different than what the elders in your community would connect with in certain ways as well. But there's still something really sacred and special about Betena, and made with certain traditions and untempered and all that.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I think important for us as well. And I'll share from our perspective. Like when we started this relationship with even the name Betena, that's something that you said, oh, I heard this, can we use it? And I'm like, yeah, perfect. It's not a name that we're borrowing from like an archetype, or we're not calling it Cebu, such a big entity, like we even had that conversation because you wanted to honor sort of the language. And so Betena is sort of a greeting, nothing. We're not going to step on anybody's toes. We're not stealing from an archetype or a deity. So I think that's a beautiful process, because you still, Soul of Cacao still wants to honor where it comes from. So we name it Betena. And then we also discuss about the process of how we bring the cacao into the form that we're presenting it, which we try to keep it as local and as traditional as we can. But because we're we're producing paste of cacaos for the people that want to come and purchase that and have it as part of their ritual, their practices, then you're changing sort of the supply chain, because now you have to produce more. Yeah, so you're probably going to bring a grinder, a stone grinder, where if when you come and visit us, you will see that a traditional preparation of the cacao that is about to take place in the ceremony for the life or the ritual of the death of whatever it may be is going to be, first of all, hand grind in a big stone that sits on the home of the sruti, and then another stone that she grinds it with. So first of all, there's only one person touching those stones, and they're taking care of that spirit that is about to crush the cacao spirit to bring it into a form. And then it has to be done in a specific time of the day. So if you're preparing cacao for a ceremony that's going to happen, it has to be during a specific time of the day. You can't do it after this time because then Cebu comes and he knows that. So there's protocols. There's like ways of preparing that cacao when you're toasting the seeds into the fire, and then when you're grinding it, it all has to do in the timing and in a specific mindset with a specific song. So there's no way that we can prepare Betena cacao that way. It's like that's like the premium of the premium of the premium. This is what the cacao women do in small batches because you're doing it in small batches, yeah. And so they actually get a little ball. We call it a little pepa, and that is handmade 100%, and that's what we use for our cacao circle ceremonies inside the tribe. And whereas in Betena we have to go bigger, but we're still using the fire because the fire for us is important. We can with technology go into the dehydration or the other methods, but for us the alchemy of the fire is important. That's something that you'll find in Betena. That's why the cacaos are so different. That's why they smell different, they look different, because every cacao, every batch is cooked after it's been fermented in with the fire, and then after that it goes into the stone grinder. And yeah, every batch is going to be different. And so I feel like the way of processing ceremonial cacao inside the tribe for our people for those specific things are going to be completely different. We have different tools for it, and we cannot move those into this modern way of mass producing. It's just it would insult the way that we've been doing things in the beginning, which is slow, small, with protocols, with attention. That's just the way that it's done. So even that, imagine, even the process of creating the cacao, the attention, the protocols, even that is part of the ceremony of cacao. That's when it starts, because you're cooking, you're preparing the medicine. And so do we have that as a Western society? Are we going to get the beans and cook them on a specific day, or do we get the cacao for somebody else? And then how do we do to bless the cacao to work with the medicine so it becomes part of the thing? It's a whole learning curve, I think, that we need to sort of embody and also respect and learn from things that our indigenous people are able to share with us as protocols, or as basic things to do when you're preparing your cacao, which are different from what you will find inside the tribe, for sure.
Yeah, I think this is going to help Soul Lift customers and the community understand much better where Betena cacao comes from. And my last question is, basically, especially people who haven't met me personally and don't know about my basically 10-year history of asking indigenous elders about this and developing relationships. Sometimes people see me on the internet and they're like, "Who is this guy? Why is he even working with cacao as a person with, at least mostly European heritage?" There's a bit of a family question mark about. I grew up with the identity of having some Native American heritage too, but the genetic test says differently, so we're trying to figure that out. But my question is, why did you decide to work with me, and why do you work with Soul Lift?
Yeah, I feel like in this journey of being a bridge to my people and somebody that is also speaking this language, and I'm able to to ask better questions and just to learn through the outside ways of conducting partnerships and relationships. I feel like that sort of experience in life has put me in a place where I can ask better questions and do a little bit more research than my brothers and sisters inside the territory. So I sort of find myself in this, like, okay, I need to do this in a good way, in the best way possible. And so when I visit, when we first, I think I saw you on social media, and I just love what you were posting. And I'm like, who are these people? Where are they from? Oh, they're getting cacao from Guatemala. And I just love the transparency of, like, this is who we work for. They're the women that we're working with, and this is their story. And then I was like, okay, I haven't seen this a lot, because it's usually, the person is the one absorbing all the energy, and they're the ones that want to be like the protagonist of the story. And so they leave the communities, the people, that relationship with the land and everything else on the sidelines. And so when I saw your website, I just saw the different stories and how you were just working with different communities in different regions. And I said, well, he doesn't know about Costa Rica because I don't see them there. So I think that was just like the impulse of reaching out, because I just saw the transparency and I saw what you were trying to do with building relationships. And even in our first conversations, the questions, the forms, like that, how do we build this together? How do we make sure we honor this? How do we make sure it's organic? How do we make sure that it's testing all the things that we need to ensure that it's reciprocal to the people working with the land, working with the seeds, the families? How do we make sure that it goes back to just that conversation alone that we had, Nick? To be honest, not a lot of people have it. Not a lot of people have it. I worked in the wellness, spiritual sort of scenarios for the past 10 years, and a lot of people don't do that. They don't want to honor the ways of the indigenous people, the way that Soul Lift Cacao sort of showcased in the website and you're doing on the Instagram socials. So I appreciated that. I appreciated the way transparency and accountability and honoring the regions and the people. That's the branding. That's sort of who you want to introduce into the world. So yeah, that's why I feel like we were just attracted into, yeah, we're building this in a good way with the limited perception and the limited knowledge that we have. We're trying to do this in a good way.
Well, it's an honor to share Betena Cacao. I've definitely developed a personal connection with it. I feel the strength of the energy of it, and I hope that we can, together continue to educate people and make it more common that people think more deeply about these things because the world needs cacao, but it's also important, to keep the ethics and reciprocity.
I mean, it's beautiful. Cacao is growing now in so many other places, and it's just that the recognition that Mesoamerica and this region has been the region that has had this relationship with the cacao goddess deity the longest since the beginning of our times, and she is part of our creation. And so when you tap into that original story, then you sort of go into like the womb of creation of why. And so then you're now in this mystery of the mystery of life, with dancing with the people that are being part of this culture. And so that you're sort of now understanding why cacao is important in your life and why was it so important for them. So then now you're sort of bridging into a new culture, and at the same time being able to be a voice for those that are discovering the medicine of cacao. So yeah, really happy of how it's moving. And I really pray that we continue to share their stories of the original people so that it doesn't get lost into just another substance. That's my prayer, that cacao continues to embody that spirit within ourselves and the things that we do, that it doesn't get diluted because of doing as humanity.
Agreed. Well, thanks so much. It's been a great conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. We'll see you around.